Hello lovelies and welcome to spooky season, where we're actually going to be talking about true beauty stories that have happened throughout history that are very dark, very twisted, to the degree where they could be talked around a campfire, where you were talking about all the worst things that could possibly happen, then it turns out to be true. So today's story, we're actually going to be talking about the founder of L'Oreal, Eugene Scheuller. Now you might have heard a couple of things about him, not so much if you just read what L'Oreal have actually stated about him, because they've actually tried to cover this stuff up an awful lot. I'm going to put a little bit of a trigger warning at the start of this because we are talking about World War II, we are talking about eugenics and genocide and his involvement with that and war crimes, and I know that this is an awful lot to handle, so if you are emotionally, mentally not capable of handling it right now, save this video for another time or even just don't watch it. I have plenty of other fluffy content that you can watch. So why would I count this as being a spooky story if it's actually true and based on historical facts? Well, clearly you haven't actually seen my other L'Oreal videos. I will just list up my parent company's playlist right here because that is a really great place to start. You don't need to watch that to start off with, but it would just give you like some background into some of the history to do with these companies. And L'Oreal I've already done 2 other videos on because they've done a lot. Obviously I'm going to have to blank out quite a few of the words that I've used in here, but you know it's around World War II, so I'm also guessing that you actually know the words that I will be blocking out, but obviously I don't really want this video to get shadow banned, so I'm just going to be muting some parts out for obvious reasons. All of my sources are listed down below as well. Please don't forget to connect with me on Instagram right here, because that is where I'll also be sharing the details about this makeup look. You can follow along as well, and I'll also have those products listed down below. But if you do try this look out, please do tag me because I would love to see someone draw better bats than what I did. I'm gonna have to try a lot before it comes time for Halloween. This was my first try, so please do not roast me too much in the comments, and without any further ado, let's just jump straight into the video. Base is done, brows are done, everything is listed down below that I've used on this face. Nothing is owned by a parent company that tests on animals, and everything is of course cruelty free and vegan. I feel like we need the darker palette for today's look, just because of these colours. So Eugene was actually born on the 20th of March in 1881, and he would of course later be one of the founders of advertising, and not to mention of course L'Oreal, the massive conglomerate that we know and some people love today. Obviously not me. So Eugene, when he was young, he was known as being a chemist with an entrepreneurial spirit. So he actually started the beginnings of the soon-to-be multinational conglomerate L'Oreal with a simple thing, which is just a hair dye. The way that L'Oreal actually tells this story is incredibly vague. It's only a few sentences on their website, which I'll just pop up on the screen now, because it is... They tread around any issues by not addressing anything at all. And that's probably where my biggest problem is, because there's a reason that I'm making this video, and I've alluded to it in past videos as well. He was the son of 2 patisserie owners. He was incredibly smart and pretty egotistic, honestly. So this is one of the quotes from him. "Finally, I had the good fortune, which I think I deserved, to obtain a product of excellent quality that allowed me to at last launch my company." We can already tell the type of person that this guy is. I mean, like, I understand if you are a very intelligent person, it's good to be proud of like your achievements. I am not going to shade anyone ever for being proud of like work that they have managed to achieve and do. And wow, is this purple not the most pigmented thing ever? This is the color Purple Potion, by the way. I always forget that it is one of the most pigmented colors out there, and we'll just be blending this for a little while now. In 1909, he founded the Société Française de Teinture Inoffensive pour Cheveux. Pour Cheveux? Now obviously that is a big mouthful, so he later on changed the word to be L'Oreal, which was a homonym for auréole, a popular hairstyle of the period, and a play on the word auréole, or halo in French. It doesn't mean what it sounds like in English, which is a really good thing to note because it sounds like something completely else, which I don't think that many women would want to be using on their hair. So he was actually constantly thinking not just about how to dye people's hair and build an empire, he was also very, very interested in politics and society. So when he was young, he actually was really interested in socialism, which is quite an interesting thing to note considering where the trajectory actually goes. So he became a Freemason, and after only 3 years left became a staunch anti-Republican, hater of the Jews and of Freemasonry. Something must have happened in those years that he just clearly isn't discussing, because like the reasons that people actually really despise something, like that sort of vitriol that normally comes from something which is very I don't know, personal, to create such a visceral reaction, you know? So that was actually another way in which he was very business focused. He wanted to introduce a proportional salary, so that meant that depending on your outputs, you got given like more money effectively, and if you didn't meet your quotas, you got given less money. So that's not ableism in action. That's not like, he effectively kind of wanted people to sort of work like machines. And like, yes, you know, some people are faster than others at certain tasks, but not everyone is made the same. So that's super interesting. Now, luckily, this never actually caught on with others, but it was something that he really tried to push for a very long time. Your worth is tied to what your outputs are. Now, I know that in today's hustle culture, it kind of feels like that anyway. So he was actually a really passionate orator and really wanted to be able to get his message out there. So he also actually shared his thoughts in lectures on the radio. Basically anybody that would lend an ear to hear him talk, he would talk their ear off about his concepts and notions, which, I mean, I guess you could say that every single YouTuber is trying to do that as well. Kind of true, but like the way that he went about it was incredibly aggressive. It's really important to note that Eugene was a businessman through and through, burst off. Like that was his main passion, was business. Now, I'm not someone to hate on the hustle. I think that it's a really good thing for people to have ambitions. It's just, you can still be a good person whilst doing that. I'm a strong believer in that. Pretty much just only seem to listen to the first part of that thought process. So in 1936, after a lot of strife, shall we say, a leftist socialist majority won in Parliament, and they made sweeping reforms including holidays, wage increases, 5 days a week just for working, and then you have 2 whole days off, being unproductive and not working for him. Like, they obviously did have a few other things as well, but oof, he was not, and I repeat, not one bit happy about this. So radical. So communist. Now, of course, Scheuller was much more intelligent than anybody that was in power at that time, and he thought that democracy actually let idiots into power. This is obviously foreshadowing for what happens later, which if you know a little bit about the story, you'll understand. The fact that the frontrunner was also Jewish didn't help sway his opinion either, because if we mentioned before, he is very anti-Semitic, so... Now, of course, enter la Cagoule, or the hood, whatever you want to call them. First time trying this eyeliner, I'm a little bit nervous, I'm also a lot excited. So this is the BFF liquid liner, by the way, which apparently has a brush tip. So I'm gonna try and do some bat wings with this. Ooh, this looks like the KVD one. La Cagoule were honestly a ghastly group of people who were anti-communist, anti-republican, and anti-Semitic. They wanted to replace democracy with a dictatorship. Their ultimate goal was to topple the French Third Republic by whatever means necessary and establish a right-wing authoritarian state. The leader of La Cagoule, Eugene Deloncle, sought out Eugene Scheuller and recruited him as a member, to which of course led Eugene to giving them lots of money, gave them space in the L'Oreal head offices as well. So kind, so thoughtful, really a man of his word. There isn't any evidence to actually show that he was involved directly in their violence. Nothing shows he was, but he actually funded it, he housed them, and he supported them. Now, in my opinion, an enabler of violence is just as bad as doing the violence, because you know what they're up to. You're actively giving them the means in which to actually do this stuff. So to me, I'm personally not letting him off on this. I'm currently trying this out, by the way. It's the AC On Tour Contour Highlight Palette. I don't know if I'm ever going to use those, but I wanted to get a replacement and try and find something that was local. Like, this highlight looks so weak to me. Now, the French forces fell in 1940 against the Germans, tragically. But of course, to Eugene Scheuller, this was further proving that democracy was just for idiots. He even wrote about it in his book, La Révolution de l'économie, where he actually hails Hitler as being the best thing since sliced bread, effectively. including putting in that book a number of Hitler's speeches and the haunting quote, "We must rip from the men's hearts the childish concept of liberty, equality, and even fraternity, which can only lead to disaster." There's a lot to unpack in this quote, and it's really scary that he actually was kind of thinking this way before he even became involved with La Cagoule, which really does just kind of show the twistedness that was his brain. So whilst he was living in occupied France, because he was a so-called pro-Nazi, he still got to have his radio show to spread the good word amongst the people, the peasants, the fool. This is actually just a side note because Cydnee Black has actually done a fascinating video on the propaganda that actually started the in Germany. That was an incredibly good video. Now one tactic that they actually did was they mass produced radios, and they made sure that every single household in Germany was able to have a radio, so then they could just hear this indoctrination constantly, because it was a source of entertainment, because of course they didn't have TVs then, they didn't have anything like that. So radio was a really great invention. They thought it was a really good thing. But of course, I'm getting the sneaky suspicion that they did this similar tactic when they actually invaded France. And once it was occupied, they're like, we're doing this same tactic. It's proven to work. That's how we managed to convert so many Germans to this way of life. It's kind of terrifying that he was actually speaking to far more people than what he could have been if that sort of thing wasn't enabled. He, of course, spouted of purification, a revolution where shooting 50 or 100 important personnel was the way forward in order to create the much needed revival. Honestly, this stuff is just despicable. Trying this mascara for the first time. You know when you're slightly underwhelmed by packaging? I was expecting this to be like shapely. Best time using mascara is always the weakest. Lashes today are going to be the high status ones from Sass Beauty, and also these little Ardell clumps, because I'm going to put them in the lower lash line. Can't do it on camera, going to do it off camera, and let's just come back. Of course, using this one, it says infinity. It does mean the Buzz Lightyear kind. I'm undecided on black lips or not. I'll line them with this first and see if I want to actually do ombre or black. I'm gonna see if we can do this. So Eugene, the ambitious person that he was, he had big goals. He wanted to become, under the Vichy regime, the Minister of the National Economy. He was really close with German official Helmut Nocken. There's a whole Wikipedia page on just him. He was the commander of police and security for the SS intelligence services. Nocken was also involved with the deportation of French Jews to concentration camps, the execution of thousands of Frenchmen, and torturing agents. So obviously a really nice friend to have. You know, he'd have your back with a gun to it. I'm sure they honestly had great chats about the benefits of genocide. I'm sure they got along so well. Now, L'Oreal, the business, was booming all the way through World War II. Now, isn't that funny? They never actually struggled with any sales. They never struggled at all. During a world war where there were shortages on everything, a company that dealt with hair dye, cosmetics, that was all that they were dealing with, but they never struggled, not once. Very interesting. I mean, obviously this is just a coincidence that he had so many dealings with La Cagoule. Bearing in mind, this was the epicenter of World War II, was France. Like, the level of destruction there was something that we can't really even comprehend today. So Eugene was actually also co-director of a large paint company called Valentine. He helped them forge a partnership with a German company called Druckfarben, and up to 95% of the company's tonnage actually went to the German Navy for the program Aryanization, which obviously it was to strip the Jews of their businesses and property. So in telling you about this, it's honestly no wonder why L'Oreal didn't care that their headquarters was on stolen property for over 30 years, considering this heritage. Again, I will just link this video up here for you because you need to know about this stuff. I think it's quite pertinent to what we're talking about today. Now, of course, you don't need to worry because justice was totally served. he was charged with economic and political collaboration. The issue is that these charges actually missed so much of what he did do, and of course what he did support, because funnily enough, the paperwork was unclear in places, so you can't charge this man without full documented proof. That's why that relationship between Valentine is so important, because that's where everything was masked. That was where all of the funds were being hidden, was literally because of Valentine, that was directly funding efforts for the war, obviously on Germany's side. Like, that's where all of the money went. Sorry, this is making me really mad. Now, of course, like the righteous man that Eugene Scheuller was, he tried to wiggle out of any involvement after the war, saying he was used for propaganda, and of course it was all to save himself, and he just had to do this. He was being used by the Germans. He'd never had these thoughts before, despite what we've obviously uncovered about his history. Scheuller did, of course, have witnesses to back him up, but he was obviously really a good guy though at heart, as he sheltered some Jews who worked for him, and apparently secretly financed the resistance. There's another part of this which kind of leads into the Betancourt affair, which is where it gets even more complicated when there's a whole book that's written about the Betancourt affair. There is an excerpt that's out there, but I kind of want people to go and support the person that actually wrote this book, because you can't really find all that much out on the internet without obviously plagiarizing this, so I don't really want to go into it here, but that is very interesting. But his future son-in-law, André Betancourt, vouched for him, and funnily enough actually became vice president at L'Oreal. Like, what a coincidence. Also, Francois Mitterrand, he became president of France. I mean, it's not like Eugene Scheuller had any position of influence at all, or power behind him that he could have used to influence people, is there? I mean, of course we know that Eugene wasn't good at connecting with people, manipulating people, wasn't at all charismatic, nor a threatening person though, right? Purely an innocent man who got swept up in it all. At least that is a story that L'Oreal tells and has control over many of the avenues of the internet, because of course, like, they are such a big company, you pay enough money on Google and you'll be able to bring your stories up to the top, as opposed to the people speaking the truth. They just get pushed down and just said that it's defamation, whatever you want to call it. The thing is, this stuff happened. This was history, this is part of the truth. This is them trying to rewrite their own history books, and that's where I find this the most disturbing, because obvious reasons. Please don't try and do that. History happened. We should learn lessons from it rather than trying to cover it up. Poor little guy looks like more of an umbrella than anything. But this liner is amazing. You can do this with black lips. I've decided today not to go with black lips because the state of my sink last time took a lot of cleaning. Clearly this person did a better job with the bats. I try and do better. No one can say I didn't try. Here's another fun, spooky fact for you. Justice was never actually truly served in the end. The judge actually dropped all the charges against him, so his life could carry on as if nothing ever happened. Their amazing financial situation had them positioned so well that they were able to actually take over the beauty industry, and boy did they do that. Now, we always know that money gets you everywhere, even way back then, even when you've committed crimes against humanity. That's the lesson that we learn today, kids, and sadly we still see it happening today. But that's probably the scariest thing about this whole story, is just the fact that all these atrocities were able to happen and no justice was ever actually served. That's what's so disheartening about it. That's why this is a good spooky story, and this is the last one of these that I'll actually be doing this year. But if you do actually enjoy these, then please do comment down below, because there are other stories that I've uncovered, but I decided to kind of focus on these two that I've done. If you haven't seen the first one, I'll list that up here as well, because it's a really good watch. That one took me on a wild journey that I wasn't expecting to go on, same as this one. So let me know, because I'm happy to make this an annual thing, because I think it's a lot of fun to find out like all of these creepy things that we just had no idea about. At least I knew a couple of things, but the level of evil that you can actually find. Is quite scary, so it makes it for the perfect time of year. Don't forget, Christmas time, I'm doing 12 good beauty stories for Christmas, so that's going to be my 12 days of Christmas. If there are any great beauty companies that you know about, great beauty stories, please listen down below, because I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. I found a few good things, but I'm still working on that list. And if you do try out this makeup look, please do tag me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is right here. And of course, I'll see you lovelies again very soon with some new videos, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye! I've got glitter all over this now. I just want to see if this does actually highlight at all. Oh, that powder certainly comes off there. That's so weak.